Let's play a little game of what if, Badger fans, about the rest of this season and what could happen this offseason.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Badgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. Thank you for being in every day, or thank you for being here every single day as part of this community. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Today's episode, we are talking about what if. What if the rest of the season goes the way we think it does and Luke Fickell is back next year? What would be the reasons why, and why should Badger fans maybe feel okay about that? Some 2026 recruits balling out. Let's talk about some of those offensive stars that look great. Bye-week checklist and getting ready for Michigan. Let's start here. I've talked about this a couple times, but I wanted to just devote a segment to it because I think it's an interesting thought experiment. A lot of Badger fans are already in on full-scale changes, and you've seen other programs already shift head coaches, right? We've seen Virginia do it. We've seen a couple other places do it already. UCLA in the Big Ten has already started that coaching search. So a lot of Badger fans, given the play of the Badgers over the last 2.5 years, have said, no, we're good. We have to move now. And I'm not there right now. I've talked about this. I've told you why, but it's a totally fair perspective. That's where people are at, right? I get that perspective for sure, especially coming off what is maybe one of the worst. It's one of the worst games I've seen the Badgers play against a mediocre opponent in Maryland. And for all the Maryland might be really good, they're not. They're fine. They're okay. This is a team that is okay. The Badgers should be better than this. So all that's a fair perspective. But here's the thing. What if we, and I say we, I mean Wisconsin, the university, the administration, the alumni, that for whatever reason, they're not going to move on from Luke Fickell, whether that's buyout related, whether that's they want to be patient, whether that's there's a desire to give someone 4 years, whether that's because Chris McIntosh is the athletic director and he's the guy that hired Luke Fickell. So it's kind of his decision, and he's certainly not biased. So for whatever reason, probably a combination of all the above, right? They want to see what he could do with a 4th year. The buyout is a real thing. Chris McIntosh, this is his guy, and he probably doesn't want to admit failure on it yet, or he wants to see what it could eventually become, if it could become what he thought it could become. So for any of those reasons, right, just let's play this out. So let's say we finish 3-9 this year, 4-8, hopefully not 2-10, but for whatever reason, Wisconsin doesn't make a coaching move. Maybe you shake some stuff up on the staff. And then next year you go into year 4, Luke Fickell, and that redshirt young offensive line is now Kevin Haywood is back and he's healthy at left tackle. Joe Brunner's back at left guard. Another year in the system. You have Ryan Corey, who's another year better in the system. You have Colin Coverly and Emerson Mandel, who are now sophomores, right? Redshirt sophomores in the system. That entire line could be better. And then here's your schedule next year. You're at Iowa, Maryland, Penn State, Purdue, and UCLA in the Big Ten. You're home against USC, Minnesota, Rutgers, Michigan State, which means you miss Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon. So let's game this out for a second. Let's say Luke Fickell comes back. Maybe you make an adjustment on the staff somewhere. That would certainly not surprise me at all, but he comes back. You have a much easier slate of schedule. Your offensive line is going to be a year more mature, probably more ready to go. They have to develop them. Like, that's been an issue, but they're going to be in the system longer, a little stronger, a little more experienced in these roles. And then all that young talent that we've been kind of excited about. Eugene Hilton is going to be a year further along. Mason Posa, who's already showing flashes. Cooper Catalano, who we like. Grant Steck is going to be a year further along. Those running backs are going to be a year further along. Maybe it's Carter Smith next year, quarterback. Jalen Williams, some of those highly recruited players. Nicholas Clayton. Again, who knows? You have to hang on to people in college football, but the Badgers have hung on to most of their players for the most part. Obviously, a certain cornerback aside. So there's a chance. What I'm getting to is there's a chance this season finishes poorly, or maybe Luke Fickell shows improvement. Maybe this team shows improvement as the season goes on, which I think would make the decision incredibly easy. If that happens, I don't think there's any changes in the offseason in terms of Luke Fickell. But even if maybe it doesn't, then you go into next year, some of these young pieces mature. You have Luke Fickell on an easier schedule, and they win 7 or 8 games. And then do we look at this year as kind of a blip in the road? Is there kind of a, okay, now, or do we look at next year if that does happen as kind of a, oh, it feels like a Big Ten Westian schedule, and that's not real. So it's interesting to me because I've been on record and I continue to say is I don't think there's going to be a coaching move forever. However many Badger fans want that or think that's the right move, and again, that's a totally fair perspective. I don't think it's going to happen. It's certainly not going to happen in season. If it is, if it does, I will be shocked and I'll come on here and I'll talk about it and I'll own my receipts. I don't think it's going to happen in season. I don't see any reason for it to happen in season. I don't think it's going to happen out of season. I think Luke Fickell's going to be here next year. And there's a very real chance, Badger fans, that he's here next year and a lot of these young pieces improve. Maybe for the love of everything, quarterback healthy. Maybe they have a healthy quarterback. The offensive line's older. Some of these young pieces we really like are better. And maybe they look pretty solid. And then suddenly it feels like this year is maybe the bottoming out that I'm not going to say needed to happen because I don't buy that. I don't think this program needed a bottoming out after never missing a bowl game in basically my fandom's life. So it's still the fact that we are at the depths we are at is still a failure from this staff and this administration all the way up. It's still a failure. Missing a bowl game last year is a failure. Consider how many bowl games are out there now. You just have to go 500. That's a failure. The way you played against Maryland's a failure, but there's a chance. I'm telling you, and I'm curious where people are at on this. Is if next year everything just looks a little better because the schedule's easier, because the young talent has matured, because you get a healthy quarterback for Pete's sake, do then fans start to say, okay, maybe I'm back on board, or is this too far gone for fans to ever climb back on the bus? I don't know. I think it's an interesting thought experiment, right? Because there's a lot of years where there were several years where Wisconsin won 7 or 8 games with really easy schedules, where if they had this schedule, I don't know if they would have gone to a bowl. And maybe those years are looked at differently then. So next year, the schedule evens out a little bit. The young talent gets better. And ideally, a Carter Smith, who I've heard is doing really well, who was making strides. Ideally, a guy like that takes steps this offseason. Maybe he's a quarterback next year, and then you have a guy for 3 years. I mean, wouldn't that be amazing? That would be the absolute best case. So I'm just curious if Badger fans are thinking about that scenario. I think a lot of people think this is completely over and it can't get better. It can absolutely get better next year. Like it can go Luke Fickell, this entire staff could come back and change nothing. Let's say they're C's, like a D's, whatever you would grade this coaching effort right now and what they've done with this program. They could come back next year, change nothing, and be better just because of the circumstances around the program with health, with maturation of young players, and with schedule. They could be better next year just because of all that. And then maybe this thing starts to morph into a long-term vision. I don't know. Tell me what you think. Let's take a second here. Friends of the show, we got to talk about some 2026 recruits that are absolutely balling out, including what we might want to call the big three for the Badgers. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. There is some talent in the pipeline. But first, a quick second for our friends of the show over at 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine has got an upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins, plus nutrients, with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. This is awesome. Again, this is what I've talked about. Like, I've taken long road trips, and man, you start to grind after a while. You're like pinching yourself to stay awake. Roll the window down, roll the window up. What podcast am I listening to? I can't drink another cup of coffee. I'm going to stop at the gas station. I'm going to pick up a 5 Hour, throw it in my back pocket because it's simple, it's portable, it's easy, it's convenient, and it tastes pretty darn good. You get that little bump, but you don't come down, you don't crash. It is a flavor upgrade for sure. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorites you love, or maybe be bold. Try something different. Go to in-store, try something different, or go to Amazon, or go to www.5hourenergy.com today. Okay, let's talk about there's some dudes in this recruiting class. And I know this class has been a little slow at times, especially maybe on the offensive line, defensive line. They're still looking for a couple pieces. But I don't know if people are paying attention to what Jaden Petit, Amari Latimer, and Ryan Hopkins are doing. Call it the big three in this class. This offensive trio is lighting it up. Let's start with Jaden Petit. So Jaden Petit is coming off a monstrous game. Monstrous game. If you remember, Jaden Petit committed a couple months ago, committed pretty close to the time Amari Latimer did. Petit is a 4-star receiver out of Florida. I mean, those things don't typically go with Wisconsin commit. Listen to Jaden Petit's last game. Last weekend, Petit finished with 9 receptions. This is in a game. 9 receptions, 300 yards. On the season, Petit has 29 receptions, 716 yards, and 12 touchdowns in just 4 games. 4 games, he's got 12 tutties, 716 yards. I texted someone kind of close to him, and he said route running's gotten better. I asked specifically, like, what has he gotten better on? What he's been working on? It sounds like the finer points of playing receiver have gotten better with Jaden Petit. The production is like eye popping, and when you watch film of him, his immense physical upside is ever present. Big body, physical, tough after the catch, great yak guy. Wisconsin just doesn't get guys like Jaden Petit very often. This is a massive get for Wisconsin. And it's someone you got to hold on to these players as best as you can in today's landscape of college football and college sports, which is always difficult to do. It's whether it's a recruit or a player on your roster. Like, these things are hard now. These are real things you have to be able to do. But you can't worry about holding on to them until you get them. And the fact that he's in this class, he's absolutely blowing up. I am curious to see if other schools continue to kick the tires here. This is a massive, massive piece in this class for Wisconsin. And if they are able to, keep the staff in place, and by the way, Coach Reed, the new receivers coach, did a phenomenal job here. This is a huge win for Wisconsin, and it continues to look better and better the more he plays this season. So Jaden Petit, definitely someone to keep an eye on. 2026 verbal commit to the Wisconsin Badgers. Big time receiving target, is absolutely balling out in Florida. Let's go to Amari Latimer. Amari Latimer has been on the show. I think he's still a high 3-star composite, which is insane to me. This is an absolute 4-star running back. I had somebody in the recruiting world tell me this is the most underrated running back in the country. I had another person in the recruiting world tell me now he's a top 5 back. I don't know what they're doing with the rankings on Amari Latimer. He's a monster, an absolute monster, and has been dominating down in Georgia this cycle. Last week for Amari Latimer, I think this was last week. It was either last week or the week before. For Amari Latimer, 6 carries, 145 yards, and 3 touchdowns to go along with 2 receptions, 49 yards, and a touchdown. So on the day, you're talking about 8 touches, about 200 yards, and 4 touchdowns. I think I didn't write it down. I think he's 4th or 5th in his class, his high school, his football class in rushing yardage in the state of Georgia right now. He's been unbelievable. And one of the best things you've seen from Amari Latimer when you watch film, some of the new film that's coming out of him, the senior film, is his ability as a receiver. So if you go back to Amari Latimer, what do we like about him? Really compact. He kind of reminded me a little bit of like Frank Gore. Really compact, really natural between the tackles, physical as all get out, will run people over, but also has enough speed to break at the distance. This is a true workhorse, 3-down guy. And then you see the defensive clips where he's pounding like he's just being physical as a linebacker coming downhill. And then you see the receiving clips, right? You see him catching a deep post in a contested space, catching it and breaking off for yak. You see him coming out of the backfield, catching like swing passes and check downs. This is a 3-down back, and the type of guy that if he gets here next year, I don't think you can keep him off the field. Probably the same with Petit. Now, Petit not playing at the highest level of competition, so that's a spot that he's going to have to get a little better at, or not get better at, but he's going to have to prove himself against a higher caliber of athlete. But both of these guys feel like players that year one you plug in and you find some type of role because they're different. They bring something different to the room with their physical tools and their physical skill sets. Both of them are absolutely balling out. Ryan Hopkins, again, our guy Rajiv went and watched him live, talked about the live arm. Another player who has looked pretty darn good for the most part, playing for the best, if not one of the best, if not the best high school program in the country. Had a massive game against Bishop Gorman a week ago. Bishop Gorman is one of the top programs in the country as well. Ryan Hopkins led his team to a victory there, showed really nice movement skills, a really strong arm on multiple occasions. Again, you could very easily look at these 3 as 3 of the toolsiest players at these positions the Badgers have recruited in a long, long time. Think quarterback. The Badgers have not recruited a quarterback that can run, move, has the size and the arm of Ryan Hopkins probably ever. Yeah. Please, somebody correct me if you think I'm wrong. This is a 6'3" quarterback that's a track guy that has a live arm. I can't think of another guy with his physical skill set the Badgers have brought in. Maybe maybe you go back to DJ Gillens, who was a Paul Chryst recruit coming out of Florida, who's a 4-star dual threat quarterback. Maybe that guy. Oh, he was a 4-star guy, got it up into Madison, ended up hurting his knee. They switched him to receiver, never pans out. That's maybe the last guy you look at that has this type of physical skill set. Kurt Phillips came out of Tennessee as a dual threat guy, but he could never run quite like Hopkins. Hopkins is a legit track guy. I mean, he's like a 10-6 guy. He's a 4-5 guy. He's a legit track guy. I can't think of another quarterback the Badgers have brought in a class that has his type of physical skill set outside of maybe a DJ Gillens, maybe a Tanner McAvoy, but Tanner McAvoy was never a quarterback. He became a safety when he got to Wisconsin, despite all the best efforts of Gary Anderson. So incredibly talented. You look at Amari Latimer. This is a player that's physically in the top tier of what Wisconsin has brought in athletically at the running back spot, which is a high bar, but I think he's in that bar. And Jaden Petit, I'm not sure if you can find when was the last time the Badgers brought in a big physical boundary receiver that his type of after the catch ability, had his size, his catch radius. These are unique players, and it's encouraging to see how well they're playing. And I don't think, again, teams are going to kick the tires on all of them. I can tell you right now, teams are still kicking the tires on Amari Latimer aggressively. I still think right now they're all pretty solid to Wisconsin, which is a really good sign for this program, for the recruiters that landed them. They are 3 massive pieces of this class. Dejuba, the defensive lineman, is another player I'd like to highlight. I think his year has been impressive. He is a big part of that defensive class. They need some more disruption guys up front. I think Ba is the type of guy that can give you some of that. He's a player that I think has taken another step this year. And then Donovan Dunmore, who they just got. I'm excited to see the senior film there for Donovan Dunmore, a player who I think really has some unique athletic skills. So I do this to highlight some of the really positive stuff that's going on right now in a season that has not been very much fun and is difficult at best, is me putting it lightly. But there's some big time pieces offensively, specifically in this class, that are playing really, really well. And it's going to be interesting to track the rest of their years, but I'm excited to see when those guys get to Madison. And I don't think as of now, any of them are in serious danger of flipping, despite some of the struggles from the football program. All right, we're going to take a second here. We're going to get back to bye week checklist. What do I hope they accomplished this bye week, getting ready for Michigan? That's next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick second for our friends of the show over at Quay. Not new friends of the show. So Open Phone became Quay. Quay is one of the tools that helps make a difference for business owners. It is an invaluable part to manage your phone system. So if you've heard me talk about Open Phone before, this is that with just a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call for your business is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Think of the businesses you're involved in, the businesses you run. Quay is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or your computer. So no more carrying 2 phones around or relying on a landline or relying on a secretary who might not get the messages to you. Don't miss calls, because when you do, you miss business. And when you miss business, you miss money, which is why we're doing business in the first place. I'm telling you right now, there have been times I've called because I've had a home emergency and I've called, I need somebody out here now. If I don't get somebody, I don't leave a message. I just move on to the next person. You don't want to miss these calls. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quay, formerly Open Phone. Get started for free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quay.com/lockedoncollege. That's QUO.com/lockedoncollege. And if you got an existing number with another service, Quay will port them over at no extra charge. Quay, no missed calls, no missed customers. Today's episode also brought to you by our great friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel is here. Football season is in full swing. And Major League Baseball playoffs are about to start. NBA is going to be kicking off in a month and a half. FanDuel's the place to be. And right now they have this incredible offer. We've talked about it. They're making sure that you are ready for all the action. If you bet $5 new customer, if it wins, you get $300 to use in bonus bets across the app on parlays, futures, teasers, spreads, whatever you need. It's there on FanDuel, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, and the official sportsbook of Ryan Herring's, because it's the easiest and most simple place to spice up your sports weekend over on FanDuel. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, let's talk bye-week checklist. Let's talk about things that I think that this program needed to accomplish and things I'm hoping they were able to accomplish. The first is they need to settle on a quarterback. They badly need stability, right? So we can argue back and forth on which quarterback you think that should be. We can argue back and forth. And again, let's say Billy Edwards isn't healthy, because if he's healthy, he's the guy. No question. If Billy Edwards is healthy, maybe this bye week was incredible. Maybe they put him on a back to tank. Maybe they, a time traveler from the Badgers' future came back and gave him a new leg, right? A bionic leg, whatever it is. If he's healthy, he's the guy. No question. It's all good. If he's not healthy, they need to settle on a guy. They can't have this back and forth between, is it Hunter, is it Danny? Settle on a guy and then build out the offense that best suits him. If it's Danny O'Neal, it's got to be quicker throws. You got to move the pocket. You got to get him in space. You got to give him some run pass options where he's not getting his head taken off. You can't run 4 quarterback powers with him. You can't. Stop it. He's 6 foot, 180 pounds. He's a sophomore, for Pete's sake. He's not a Sherman tank, right? He's like a Fiat. You can't treat him the same way as you do a more powerful quarterback, a Ryan Hopkins, maybe if he's here in the future. So you got to build a game, settle the quarterback, figure out who it is, and then spend the entire week building a game plan around him that makes sense, period. Stop shuffling him in. If Billy's like 70%, don't do the thing where we're going to put Billy in, but we're going to also mix Danny in. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. Just settle on the quarterback and then build a game plan around him. It's the best you can do. Is it a great answer if Billy can't play? No, there's no great answers if your quarterback's hurt. There's not a great answer. If your ace goes down before game 1 of the NLCS, there's not a great answer to replace him. But the answer isn't to mix and match your number 2 and number 3 starters. It's to pick the best guy, let him go out there, take the ball, get on the bump, and throw 7 innings. Let's go, Brewers. I'm not a Brewers fan, but I'm a Braves fan. I'm going to cheer for all the Brewers fans because I have a lot of friends that are for the Brewers. So let's go take care of business, Milwaukee. So yeah, that's number 1. Pick the quarterback, settle on the game plan, and then I think they need to do a better job of scripting however they're going to start. And I don't actually know in terms of scripting the first offensive series, the first 15 plays, what Jeff Grimes does. But whatever they've done hasn't worked. It hasn't worked in the entirety of the Luke Fickell era for the most part. The slow starts have been ever-present. They've been omnipresent, and they have been a problem. So figure out who the quarterback is, and then spend the week. You have to get off to a fast start. You have to. So spend the week game planning against Michigan. Find 5 to 10 plays you think could work really well, and let's rep the everlasting heck out of those 5 to 10 plays. And let's go out there in Michigan and let's execute those plays. And let's get off to a start that makes it look like we can build some momentum and build some confidence. I think this team needs confidence badly. I think they need something to go right. I think they need to see a first quarter touchdown. I think they need a little bit of belief injected into their veins. And you do that by executing on offense and building a drive in the big house in what I think is going to be kind of a sleepy big house. It's going to be an early kick. Michigan isn't going to be taking this program seriously. That is the state of where we are as Badger fans now. So script something out, build upon it, and make it happen. I think that's what they need to do. Number 2, refocus on the offense line. So week 2, you had the big shift, right? We'll call it the great migration. Nat Geo always has the great migrations of the wildebeests. Week 2 was like the great migration of the Badgers offensive line. We shifted 4 people around. Everybody moved, and we haven't been able to catch our breath. Wisconsin hasn't been able to really catch its breath. This bye week is an opportunity for the offensive line to catch its breath and not just game plan for the next opponent, but also refocus on just your position and your fundamental responsibilities of being an offensive lineman. I hope they take care of that this week. Refocus during the bye week. Get the line back to the fundamentals a little bit. You can't fix everything in the middle of the season, but I think you should be able to show growth. I'm hoping the offense line looks better because of that. The next one is create some competition. I hope in this bye week, there was some real conversations about we need to play better and who wants to be those guys, and maybe some competition in some spots, whether that's a guy like Jackson Aker or Cade Yakimelli getting more reps, or whether that's maybe Davis Heinzen getting back in there at some point, or maybe it's a younger corner stepping in, or one of those, maybe it's Mason Post against Tackett Curtis, and there's a little bit of a battle there. Maybe Charles Perkins is back, and he fights his way back into that rotation to deepen that defensive line. Whatever it is, they got to really challenge the players and figure out who wants to come out here and play. Because I don't know, and I don't know this hasn't been told to me. It doesn't feel like everybody is 100% bought in. So you got to find the players that are bought in. And if that means a couple players that have been playing a lot, if you think someone else can come in and give you a spark, it might be worth trying, right? I'm not for wholesale changes. I don't think you can do that in the middle season, but there's a couple spots that haven't been good enough. Let's see if we can provide a spark in some spots. This should have been a week of competition, a week of challenging people, and a week of let's see who wants to be here and let's see who wants to get on the plane to Ann Arbor and go and fight. Fight for the motion W on your helmet if that matters. And it should, because it's an incredible university. So it should matter. And I'd like to see the people on the field and the coaches on the sideline for that matter. Nobody's excused in this. I want to see like a program that shows up like it matters. Like you have an entire state of people that are cheering for you and really care about you. I want to see that level of effort show up next Saturday in Ann Arbor. So that's what I'm hoping they do in the bye week. We will see. On Wisconsin, as always, appreciate the ever-living heck out of y'all. Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Badgers, for being an everydayer, and I really, really look forward to talking to you again tomorrow.